the type of position. A sharp Italian with attacks on either side of the board, Danny, and he played with nerves of steel. He had a minute left at the end of the game. So impressive.
I'm absolutely I'm absolutely not necessarily blown away because I believe that Gukesh can do this. Oh my gosh, is this going to be the most exciting draw ever? Remember, John, we commentated on the most. No, it's not the most exciting draw.
This is brilliant. I've never seen this before. There's a rook on
e5,
Danny.
Oh my god, look at the position. The pawn's symmetrical. The pawns are symmetrical.
But have you ever seen a rook on e5 on move 9? This is amazing. Oh, it's no longer on e5.
I've never seen a rook on e5. I've seen an elephant fly, though, and this is a symmetrical pawn structure where everybody's equal.
Wow. I can't get over that. Game was so impressive. But here's the thing, Danny. If you're Gukesh, unfortunately, you're going to have to repeat that for another 3 hours. So can you do that? But still, he's got something to hang his hat on, even if the match doesn't go his way. That was an amazing game.
Yeah, that was an amazing game. Clip it and ship it. Damaraju Gukesh strikes back, says this will not be a runaway. He's already half a point away from equaling Smarter Chess's prediction in the 5-minute time control. You got to give him that. And I mean, seriously, I know we know this is an uphill battle. We know that we're going to be adding drama. So fans, forgive us for that. But the reality is, if we're talking about a storyline, which is our job to try to predict, what does Gukesh have to do with his style? What does he have to do to lure the world champion into some sort of deep, dark forest where he loses his way? It has to be great preparation, Danya, which he had in the Italian, tactical positions, as the insights showed, and then you have to deliver when it matters, under time pressure, and that's what Gukesh did. So, again, obviously it's early, but that's the kind of game you want to see if you're hoping for a close match.
Yeah, and you want to catch Magnus in those casual moments. You know, Magnus doesn't seem too concerned. He's snacking. It's still so early in the match. I mean, nothing has happened yet. But again, it's all about the confidence booster, right? If you're Gukesh, hey, I can beat the world champion. I can outplay him. And I didn't just benefit, let's say, from a mouse slip. I outplayed him fair and square that game. You got to carry that confidence forward for the rest of the match. And right here, we've got a really interesting position, Danny. Magnus is down a pawn, but he's kind of buried the bishop on c8 under a pile of rubble. How is Gukesh going to get his queenside out?
Well, and this is a typical kind of thematic sacrifice we see for white in these Berlins now. Maybe talk about that for the more advanced, astute fans out there to talk about the dynamics, because we see white doing this in this variation of Berlin, taking the opportunity to add dysfunction to the queen side in exchange for the pawn. And what exactly does black need to do? You have to get b6 and bishop b7, but when you do, there's tactics like queen e4. You highlighted it before. I can save it. We're completing each other's
sandwiches. You see, I learned, Danny. I learned.
Yep. Robert Hess just got so jealous wherever he's sitting. He just got so jealous. Anyway, so yeah, exactly that. This is a difficult spot for black, and that's what Magnus is trying to go for. And the bishop pair notwithstanding, white does have the edge here.
Yeah, what bishop pair? Gukesh giving away his dark squared bishop, and he did that for one reason only, in order to be able to play b6. You called it. There was queen e4. On the immediate b6. Now, black is worse here. There's no question about it. White can basically win the pawn back on demand. If white suddenly gets the hankering to restore material equality, you can go rook d1 and queen d3 and whatnot. But I think Magnus is going to go for more. And Magnus could still play against the bishop with a move like bishop d5 and then c4. Black will develop to a6, but that doesn't solve all of his problems.
I was just gonna ask for a friend and suggest bishop d5. I love that move. Here comes c4, like you said, the bishop remains in a cage. What you really want, if you're Magnus, is to somehow get the rook to e1, right? If rook e1 wasn't met with queen takes e1 backrange checkmate, that would be overwhelming the lady on e7, because look at the queen and bishop ganging up on the f7 pawn. That's exactly what black has to worry about. So if you're Magnus, how do you create pressure against that queen on e7 so you can do work with the attack?
Yeah, that's the right question to ask. You basically need to open up a second front. I think the long-term plan for Magnus is first to play c4, make some luft on the king side so you don't have the headache of the back rank mate, and then try to get the rook around, maybe via d4, either to e4 or to f4. And as you said, gang up on that f7 pawn, gang up on black's queen. I don't know how Gukesh is going to deal with that. He plays a5. I would be very worried about just like h3 and rook d1, and that's very Magnus style as well.
Yeah, Magnus taking a moment to ensure it. I think the one thing is, if we bring up the analysis board, the one thing black has is that bishop a6, if it's met by c4, black will strike with b5, right? And that's the move that opens up the rook on b8 and tries to get some counterplay. So if h3, bishop a6, c4, b5, black is getting that play, and there is still no rook e1 because it's checked. So again, I'm just an international master sitting in for a grandmaster friend, but this looks like you can see black is starting to come to life here. So that's why Magnus is pausing. This isn't just a cakewalk at this point.
Yeah, no, you bring up a great point. And one idea very much up Magnus's alley would be to play c4, bishop a6, and then a4 precisely to prevent b5 and to open up a pathway for the rook to e3. So, you're doing a bunch of things at once, and I don't even have to make these moves on the analysis board. It's on the real board. He's played it. Oh, no, he's played a4. Yeah.
a4 first, yeah.
And there we go.
And now he goes c4. So you were right that it was going to be on the main board soon. Just like we're going to see a lot of cash paid out. Reminder for the fans just tuning in. We got 18,000 plus of you already on Twitch. I guess people like watching the world champion play Rising Stars from India. I don't know. They didn't show up for me, okay? They probably showed up for you, but I think they showed up for the world champion and for the Rising Star from India. Welcome to the SCC. We got a long day ahead. So
nice pawn structure for black. Black's got a long day ahead in this endgame.
Gosh, this is like one of those. I feel like I was given an example as a kid by some Russian trainer I had that said, let's imagine the worst pawn structure black could ever have in the universe. And then they set up a position pretty similar to this. Isolated pawn on h7. Highlight with me, Danya. Doubled isolated f pawns, double isolated d pawns. These are pawns only a mother could love.
These are, I like it. And you're never going to go b5 ever as long as you're alive. So Magnus just has carte blanche here on the king side. You can go rook d3, d4, whatever, h3, f3. Literally put the rook on any file and it's going to be good.
I just threw up in the back of my throat a little bit. If you don't mind, I'm going to grab some of my really cold coffee that's been sitting here.
That's for like weeks. Bishop b7, though. I like how Gukesh is approaching this thus far. Get the bishops off the board first. That's step one. And Danny, you're probably going to have to give up at least one of your pawns if you're Gukesh, but you are up a pawn, technically. I know it sounds crazy. Wait, am I counting correctly? It's hard to count black's pawns.
It is hard to count because they're that bad, but let's also draw attention that Magnus wasn't happy about whether he missed bishop b7 or not. He definitely believes that this maneuver of the bishop not being stuck on a6, now on c6 is an improvement for Gukesh, I think, based on his reaction.
And the eval bar believes that as well. And Gukesh, he's not just sitting back and being passive. Rook g8, inducing the move g3. And I think he's activating his rook via g5. There we go. And Danny, if Magnus throws in h4, that looks like a no-risk kind of move. But guess what? That stops your rook from coming to h4. And h7 becomes relatively invulnerable.
Well, I was going to highlight the same thing on f4. f4 also looks like a no-brainer move, but if the rook backs up, you've also cut off your rook swing over. Although if black plays rook h5 here and white plays h4, that rook is running out of squares. So I think you have to be a little careful now if you're Gukesh. Is Magnus going to play f5? Okay, no, not anymore. Gukesh goes in for rook h5, but I wondered if the rook backed up, whether we'd see f5.
So no, I think we might see f5. Magnus is going to take back with a pawn, unless rook takes d5 as a draw for, I think, the pawn endgame.
Wait, is it? Does the king run d3, c4, b5? Okay, no, it's a draw. You're right. Okay.
It's actually not that straightforward, though. You're right, because the king has these two different pathways on both sides of the board. Magnus was thinking about it. He takes with a pawn.
Okay.
And now I think he's going to make a mad dash for b5. But Gukesh says, hey, I can just go rook h6, rook g6.
Nobody can.
This weakness on g3.
The rook will fall back to d3. This seems like a big improvement. If white is king d3, rook h6, king c4, rook g6, rook d3, white gets there in time. Is this really what Gukesh wanted?
Oh, yeah. That actually can get really hairy. So maybe after king d3, you should prioritize getting your king to b7. Maybe that's the fortress. And then Magnus is going to try to infiltrate the e-file. Yeah, there's some meat on the bone here for sure.
When you say fortress, I hear Magnus's quote. He doesn't believe in no fortress. He's a flat earther when it comes to fortresses. Am I allowed to say that? Is that politically correct? Anyway, moving on. We don't have a fortress if you're a Magnus fan.
I don't know. B4 also is a move. I don't know. 58 seconds, though. Carlsen taking a long thing here. I think he's trying to decide whether it's even worth making an attempt. Because you could risk turning this game around. You're still down a pawn.
Okay, he goes for it. I think Magnus will risk it. He likes those biscuits. Here it comes. I actually really like your point of b4. Wait, I think okay, it's not b4 now. Now it's the line we were talking about. There must be something concrete Similar to the rook switching to the e-file, like you already highlighted.
And that's what Gukesh forgot about. He had to get his king to b7. Now, rook c4 is just ending the game. Magnus is such a devil in these endgames. It's crazy.
And he takes a sip of that Isklar water. Shout out to Magnus's sponsors, Isklar. Just like that's a confident swig. We always say, what is the psychology? You only drink water when you're winning or happy. Is that what exactly your buddy Peter G says?
That's exactly what he says. And I think that's wildly accurate. Like 99% of the time is you don't feel like drinking water if you're losing. And it's over. Rook c3 next.